Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Nobody else's taste better than Welch's.
Good day, Internet.
I mean, it's a fruit spread, but I only remember Welch's from the little packets at Denny's. And so maybe perhaps that's, like it's a colored pectin thing that tastes approximately like the drawing of the package cover.
There are preserves, jam, marmalade, jelly.
Jelly, and then fruit spread, right? Isn't fruit spread a separate thing now?
I think some of those are synonyms, but yeah, that is also
I
another
buy fruit spread because there's like legal things about that because I do not want chunks of stuff in my quote unquote jam. I just want a nice,
but that's the best
smooth
part.
spread. No, I've hated
Marmalade,
them since I was a kid.
Honestly, I thought that's what they did with the extra rind from like orange and like lemon processing. They just shoved it in like orange.
Oh, there is, at least in the U.S., an FDA standard on what constitutes jelly or jam. Fruit spreads generally use that name because they don't have enough sugar.
Huh.
Because jam and jelly, you add sugar for the preservative.
Yeah, because my fruit spread does not last as long.
Yeah.
Once I open that jar, that clock is ticking.
You're sticking it in the fridge,
jam
right?
and jelly was,
I do, yes.
was to certainly the idea of jam was to preserve it.
It's my grandmother you're putting on my bread. I preserved it.
My sister still does jams.
I had a neighbor that did that, and because they had like what was their tree? Oh no, they did marmalades.
Apricot?
It was a citrus, but it was like a lemony, but it was like what's the lemon that isn't like super tart? It's the sweeter one. Myers lemon or something like that.
Okay. Jelly is made from strained fruit juice. Jam is made of mashed or pureed fruit. Preserves generally contain larger pieces of fruit or even whole fruit. And then fruit spread often have a higher fruit to sugar ratio and may contain no added sugar.
Is that what happens when I leave the fruit to sit?
This is useful.
Yeah. So I guess preserves, like you can use them like pie because you'll get like the whole fruit and it'll break down. And okay.
Yeah, cherry preserves would be useful in pie.
I should try that.
Cherry jam is like the mashed potatoes of fruit. And then jelly is really just kind of like an aspic.
So it's aspic and fruit juice, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's fruit juice strained to create a smooth, clear spread, and then it's gelled, right? So yeah,
It's delicious, is what it is.
I don't really like jelly as much. And this is why, because it doesn't have as much fruit. I really like preserves or jams.
Yes, the chunks that let you know the lineage of your
fiber.
product. Also, something about marmalade and bears. It's a whole Paddington bear.
Yeah, I don't know what
okay,
marmalade. What is marmalade? Is a fruit preserve made from citrus fruits.
Yeah.
So it's marmalade is a subsection of preserve.
Correct. But you eat the rind.
You say that as if like you were testing me when I was looking it up because
Tom, on my on the days I'm not on the show, which is basically the weekends, I'm a fruit proctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I proctor fruit.
Sounds like
so we've talked about
might want to look that up on Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
with citrus. Is there like kiwi spread? Is that a thing?
Yes, actually there is. At least in the grocery outlet store.
Is kiwi a citrus?
No, not a citrus, but I know there's like she said fruit spread.
Yeah.
Well, she said with citrus.
I said my brain was going like citrus. What tastes citrusy? Kiwi. Wait, does kiwi become a jam?
Low
kiwi
sugar.
would be a jam. Yeah.
Okay.
I was about to. I read this as low sugar topical kiwi fruit spread. It's tropical. It's not an ointment.
Could
Hey,
be
there
topical.
are kiwi
They're
topical
definitely-
like makeup masks and stuff because people
Totally.
just like the smell.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not like kiwi?
So does your face get all fuzzy and like the little bird, and then you?
I don't know.
peel it
I'm
off?
allergic to too many things to try a lot of face masks.
The worst one I've ever had to deal with was the Dial, and I don't know if they still sell it, but they sold an antibacterial bar soap back in the late 90s, and I took a shower with it. And that night, as I was sleeping, I said, why is my skin all over my body on fire?
Oh, no.
was
Because it
itchy
killed
and
too
red.
many bacteria and your body
I don't know,
rebelled.
but I didn't know what it was, so I took another shower with that exact same soap, and then it dawned on me 2
You're
hours
like,
later. It's like,
something infected me. I better clean it off. Yeah.
2 hours later, it's like, wait a minute.
So when I was a kid, I had a bad reaction to Tide. There was something in Tide detergent, so my mom could never use Tide. And then one day I was using a towel and I got irritation from it. Turned out Eileen had used Tide. This was a long time ago.
Yeah,
And-
I can't
and-
use Downy.
And I didn't even know. So it wasn't psychosomatic. It was just, yeah.
There's certain things, some of those high grade whatever chemicals they punch in. What was the one?
Well, everything's
Oh,
a chemical.
no, I know. Yeah, no, that's true. But I mean, high grade is a value judgment. But no, there's an off brand. I should say off brand. There's another brand of detergent starts with a P, like Pure something. And I used it once, and it's like, man, I can't wear any of these clothes. All I do is itch.
We use All
Oh, they still.
because it has the fewest ingredients in it, but still gets your clothes clean.
It's the most.
And,
it's the most natural of chemicals.
I don't know if it's natural, but it just doesn't have a lot of other things in it. I actually want my detergent to work, so I don't.
I remember a chemical scientist. He's like, I don't know. We were talking about like those organic and non-natural labels. They were back in the late 90s. They started sticking on stuff. And he says, like, you know what? It's like cyanide's natural. You get them in apples. You don't
Yeah.
want to be down in
So
that.
that sounds
by
like
the
my
bush.
dad. My dad was a
Yeah.
food scientist. He would always say that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's why
like,
I got everything's a chemical from my dad.
he got the thing. His thing was like, I don't know why people are so hard up on petrol. You're like, oil. It's like without oil, you wouldn't have synthetic fibers, plastics, and all these things. Is like you just can't get rid of it. The world would collapse.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it. It turns out
You
it
can't.
just floats in the middle of the ocean.
And in your bloodstream.
Yes, and accumulates in parts of your body that you don't want it to.
Oh man, how ironic! We're living longer than ever, and yet we have more plastic in our bodies than our ancestors.
Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, plasticine.
Preservative.
She's more plastic now than person.
I mean, you're not wrong. Well, when I get my new body, I'm going to get upgraded, just like Megan 2.0.
What is pectin?
Oh, isn't that like in your chest when you work out those muscles?
It's found in the cell walls of fruits and vegetables, and that gives it the gelling and thickening. So you distill pectin to add to jelly, but you get it naturally when you make a jam.
But that's not the stuff where you boil down animal joints and stuff to make.
I don't think so, since it's found in plants.
It's not quite the stuff you use
I
to
don't
thicken
think it's-
gravy.
That's collagen, right? You could
Collagen
add
pectin.
pectin to gravy to thicken it up.
Cornstarch
Actually, now that
is-
you think about it, I imagine people like, ooh, they added pectin to my gravy. In fact, what they did was make it less meaty. They
No,
added a
the worst
plant-based
is the worst one is. I know no one doesn't like Sara Lee, but I don't really like their Sara Lee cheesecake because they add pectin or gelatin or whatever to it, and it tastes kind of weird.
Pectin is plant-based, gelatin's animal-based. Yeah, exactly, Clinton.
What do you call a gelatin made from a fungus?
Coffee.
Dangerous?
A gelatin made from a fungus would just be weird. I don't know.
mold.
What
I don't know.
is a gel made from a fungus? It's called slime. A fungal gel
There we go.
or
Hey.
hydrogel.
Hydrogel. I like that. That sounds a little less nasty.
So, Tom, have you tried the mushroom coffee yet?
I did. I tried it in Seoul, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it
Good
have
taste,
any
similar?
hint of mushroom?
No, but it did have a hint of coffee.
Oh, okay.
It was not like one for one. Oh my God, I feel like I'm drinking coffee. But it was like, oh yeah, this is coffee-like. It's more coffee-like than mushroom-like. It did not taste like mushrooms at all.
More mushroom than man.
If you have a mushroom
Human-
allergy, you probably want to stay away from it. But
But I love mushrooms. Ah, they're so good.
Do
It's like
do
eating-
you have an allergy though?
I don't know. I just eat them.
Well, then you probably don't have an allergy.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was allergic to everything. It didn't stop me from eating it,
Okay.
much to my
All
parents'
right.
chagrin.
Living dangerous.
So you don't know what you're allergic to.
Perhaps
1 minute.
Perhaps I'm allergic to good times or just people.
Oh, that might be true.
Mushrooms, I will say, have that nice bite. That teeth feel that you get when you bite into an ear.
Tooth feel. Wow.
Pig's ear, that is.
Mouthfeel.
Don't say that.
I know.
I was
did
trying to avoid
intentionally.
saying that.
I know how much you love it. 30 seconds.
And it's moist.
See, I was trying so hard not
Yeah.
to contribute that.
Yeah.
I know. I did
All
it.
right,
I'm
we're
sorry. I apologize.
15 seconds out. Get out the yucks while you can.
Don't yuck my yum. Roger really shut the room down when he said that.
Yep.
That was amazing.
All right, then. Have a good show, everybody.
Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 from Studio 7 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
From Toronto, I'm Jenn Cutter.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
DTNS Live is made possible by you. Thanks to all of you, including Matt Zaglin, Jeff Wilkes, Paley Glendale, and got a bunch of brand new patrons to thank. Everybody say welcome to Collins, Sasindu, Huey, Scalacode, and Ian.
Woo, welcome.
Welcome. Scalacode might be protecting our critical infrastructure with a username like that. You know,
Nice.
Yeah. This is, in fact, DTNS Live, the show where we discuss the tech news of the day to try to help wrap our brains around it a little better. Jenn Cutter, thanks for stepping in with Sarah Lane on vacation. It's great to have you here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And also a very quick shout out to my neighbors who it was unofficial lawn work day, and they were very kind to postpone that for an
You
hour.
had neighbors on all sides conspiring to make noise, and in true Canadian style, they politely said, "Oh yeah, we'll stop for a little
Well, I
bit."
love that one busted out the chainsaw and the other one had the axe. And I'm sure I heard a lawnmower further down. And
Were they
just all
wearing
got real
flannel?
quiet.
Are they lumberjacks?
Do they
not
have
gonna out them like
fur
that.
hats on?
Yeah, I didn't realize when you were telling me this pre-show how stereotypical this could sound.
It is extremely Canadian, as I have been so subtle about
Yeah.
where I'm at.
I know, that's amazing. Fantastic. How is Toronto these days?
Good. I would call weather changeable. We get alerts
Yeah.
all the time. It's like, oh, okay, it's a storm watch. And then, but before I put my phone down, it's like, oh, it's a full warning now. And I was like, oh, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm just gonna go inside.
And then
Why
the Blue Jays are playing, and then it's
Blue Jays are crushing it, and I've probably jinxed it right now. But that has been so
that was
fun to
the
watch.
storm that I was thinking might be the case.
Hey, it's doing them favors.
Well, folks, we give you a gift every episode. We give you lots of gifts on this episode. We give you the news. We give you our conversations, try to help you understand. But we also, if you're listening live, give you the opportunity to name the show. You, like some king or queen of old, can bestow a name upon this show. Just submit your title to dtns.showbot.tv during the show. We will check back in at the end of the show. We'll tell you who the other folks in the audience thought was the best title by their votes. And then we, like some kind of imperial presence of our own, we'll pick the one we're going to use. However, for now, let's kick it off with a few stories that caught our eye. There was an attempt to impersonate U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio using generative text and voice models. They sent these fake versions of text messages and voice messages to high-level officials over Signal, voicemail, and just plain old SMS. The fake account was designed to look official. It mimicked Rubio's voice and text style. It had a, Marco Rubio at state.gov kind of, online username. They were trying to access sensitive information or just gain any kind of access. The attempts, however, failed. And the State Department has now issued a warning as it investigates the incidents. So that is good news. I think this is being reported as bad news, but it's actually good news because the attempt didn't work.
And I'll be honest, expect to see plenty more of these as the years roll on, because whenever there is some way to kind of pull a fast one over people, someone's going to try it.
Yeah, that's not new.
Yeah.
That's a thing that happens all the time, right?
Well, here's a thing that happens regularly. As Amazon kicked off its Prime Day shopping sales event, corporate employees in the New York City area were asked in a Slack message to volunteer at the company's warehouses to help with grocery deliveries. Amazon spokesperson Griffin Bush said this support is entirely optional and it allows corporate employees to get closer to customers while enabling our store teams to focus on the work that's most impactful. He also said that this was not the first time grocery corporate employees have been invited to volunteer with fulfillment.
You seem to not like this story from your tone. You seem to be mocking it.
What would give it away? I mean, this is obviously an altruistic thing that people get to.
What's wrong with this? Why is this bad?
I think it's weird to ask people to volunteer for another part of the company's job. It seems. So
you'd rather they made them do it,
or maybe, I don't know, compensated, or say, hey, we'll donate
These
money.
are salaried employees, so they're being compensated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just when someone volunteers you, I've never.
They
seen
didn't
that.
say they were volunteered.
That's
You're
true.
assuming that they're pressured into doing it, which might be true, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Well, my big beef with this is we are good with our jobs. If somebody got voluntold to do our jobs, they're not prepared to do our jobs. They don't know how a factory works.
That's
Who
true.
are they helping?
But how many times have we heard people say, I wish those corporate folks would try to do my job to see how hard it is. This is Amazon trying to do that and say, yeah, let's get those people to understand what happens out in the real world.
Yeah, and remember, this is going to be on their time. It's not going to be on corporate time.
Again,
So
they're
a
exempt
shift after
salaried
a
employees,
shift.
so these aren't people paid by the hour. They would get paid for the extra hours. So
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I'm definitely intentionally taking the adversarial position, but I feel like we're so in the mode of everything is bad these days that I want to push back on this.
No, I don't.
Even if a company has a good idea, everybody's going to rush to try to figure out how to make it sound like a bad idea, and I don't think this is the worst idea.
I mean, if they said we were opening these amazing, I don't know, maybe it's the messaging. If they said an amazing opportunity to really
you're
understand.
using the Guardian's report to tell me the messaging. We don't know how Amazon spun this to its employees, so maybe it wasn't so bad. I don't know. Following the Information's report yesterday that TikTok is developing a U.S.-only version of its app, Business Insider now reports that it's also making a U.S.-only version of its mobile video editor, CapCut. No word on U.S.-only versions of Lemonade or the study app Galth. Those are also ByteDance apps that had to shut down when TikTok temporarily shut down in the U.S. for a day back earlier in the year. But this kind of lends credence to the idea that they are expecting to have their U.S. operations sold at this point.
Yeah. Well, in Canada, the big news literally yesterday was that TikTok Canada, not the app, just the business side, was told to take off. So, of course, as a result of that, they have had to cancel a lot of their sponsorships for a lot of festivals, including an Indigenous Art Festival. That's got some pushbacks. I don't think it's going to change anyone in government's mind. So we still have the app. We'll see for how long, but we no longer have a TikTok Canada operating.
Oh, when you said take off, you mean they
they
laid them off?
cannot have offices in the country anymore.
By government order?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting. Yeah.
So
you're not allowed to be here. Okay.
If you're using the TikTok app, or you can't use if you did
that
nothing,
is
shows
we can still use the app.
Operating.
The app
They
is
just
still
can't
in the
have
store.
people. Huh.
Yes. No people.
That is a very interesting
Keep
way
the
of
app.
going
The
about
code can
that.
stay, but nobody else.
Yeah. What does that get you?
I think we're going to find out in the next 12 months.
Yeah. All right. Those are the top 3 stories that caught our eye today. We got a couple of updates to microblogging services, as you might call them, Twitter-style stuff. Mastodon 4.4 is out. Profiles is a new Profiles not a new feature. Profiles has a new feature that lets you feature specific hashtags in your profile. Pinned posts can now show as a carousel instead of having to scroll. Lists management has been made easier, and code was added to let you see quote posts from other Fediverse platforms. Code to let Mastodon users make quote posts isn't there yet. This is the first part that lets you see them from elsewhere in the Fediverse, and then Mastodon 4.5 will add the ability for you as a Mastodon user to make quote posts, aka retweet, if that makes it clear. Oh, quote post. Okay, I get what that is. Meanwhile, BlueSky made some updates Monday that added customization options to notifications. So you can now get notifications just when an account replies to you instead of every time it posts, stuff like that. You can also get notifications when someone likes or reposts your post. All of this bringing us toward feature parity as new features come to Threads, BlueSky, Mastodon, even Nostr, and X also, tweaks things here and there. So it's as good a time as any for us to check in on our own usage of all these platforms. Jen, which ones of these do you use? And I'm curious to discuss how we all use them.
I wanted to say all of them, but technically I don't use Nostr. But let's go down the list. So for X, I keep the account for mostly fact checking at this point and to keep my name, but I don't actively post there. BlueSky and Mastodon I use all of the time. I love those two. Threads I'll check in on once in a while. But I am also one of those weirdos who uses Tumblr, which unfortunately got left out of all the kind of Fediverse transitions. But I also post separate things on separate networks. I know there's cool like cross-posting things like OpenVibe, but I haven't used them yet. I actually have the app on my phone, but I will individually open each app and check my feeds and post from there. And I know that is not the universal method of doing that.
That's what I do on my desktop. Because OpenVibe is only available for Android and iOS, but I do use OpenVibe on iOS and Android, and it's nice. But then I have to go OpenX and post there because OpenVibe nobody is allowed to interoperate with X that way, which means sometimes I just post things that go to BlueSky, Threads, Mastodon, Nostr because I have OpenVibe and I don't want to go post somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I can tell who's using OpenVibe on my Mastodon feed because they will use the OpenVibe equivalent of a quote post and it will link to a BlueSky post, which does not currently get embedded when you're viewing it on Mastodon. But on Mastodon, I use an app called Ice Cubes, which has had quote posts for a very long time. So anybody who is using another app that has that feature, I can see it as a properly embedded post.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting as all of these features start to coalesce in the base code and not just in the specific apps that people are using.
Right. And I think Mastodon said it's trying to make an effort to implement this in a way that kind of jives with what all of the third-party apps have been doing so that it doesn't disrupt the flow too much. Roger, what about you? What do you use these days?
So I still use X, and curiously enough, when TweetDeck went away as the freebie version, I sort of fell off the wagon on posting when it was Twitter, but so many news stories have posts by a notable person or a notable quote that if I want to read it, not embedded in a news article, I need to have it. So that's what I use it 90% of the time for. The other 10%, I follow other people and I post things regarding the show, but really most of my time is on BlueSky. I really tried with Mastodon, but there just wasn't enough a mass collation of people.
There wasn't enough mass in your Mastodon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That BlueSky was sort of my fallback. Threads I also tried, but the people at least I interact with don't use it. So it's again, it was more of like, well, I'm just talking into a void, which may or may not be cool. But after a year of it, I was like, whatever. I might as well just stick with BlueSky.
Threads is weird because I'll post on Threads and just silence 3 days, and then everything hits at once when I guess it shows up on Discover. Because for people who click on like the algorithmic, the chronological thread, they'll see it faster. But for everybody else, like it will be days before people just discover the post, and all of a sudden that's when all of the comments come in, and I'm like, what is going on in this time warp?
That is interesting, because if they're on chronological, they also have a better chance of missing it altogether, right? Because
Depending
it
on
just
their
gets
follows,
pushed.
yeah.
It just gets pushed down the page, and if they don't check at the right time, they may not see it. And so you're only getting the people who end up seeing it in Discover somehow in that kind of case. I've noticed that about Threads too, where I'll post something across all the platforms. I'll always get a little bit of engagement on X. It hasn't changed in a year or so. It dropped down from what it used to be, but it's there. I have noticed way more engagement on BlueSky than I used to get. It seems like more people are there. I'm also seeing more journalists say, you can find my post about this on BlueSky versus X. So it does seem to be getting a little momentum there. Whereas Threads used to be the top for engagement, but it is quieted down lately, and I don't know why.
I don't know what it is. Maybe because BlueSky was fashioned in a way that it really does just feel like an alternate reality version of X. That
it was forked from the Twitter code.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a familiarity for people. It's like, oh, it's just like that. It's just different people. And I've noticed within at least the past year and a half, the amount of engagement I've had increased at least by 10, 15% on stuff I post, more so than I did before. Originally, when I got on BlueSky, I was on Mastodon, and they were about equal. In terms of like using it and then getting interaction back. But I mean, BlueSky just seems to have risen to the top, like, the frothy part of the milk.
I find too that Mastodon gives me the better conversations. I may not always get a response, but when I do, it's a thoughtful response, and it's one that can turn into a conversation much quicker. And I'll more often on Mastodon get someone reaching out directly. Saying, hey, at Ace to Tech, blah, 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 versus the other platforms.
Yeah, it depends on where your communities are. For Mastodon, InfoSec, far and away better than BlueSky. There is great InfoSec on BlueSky, but it's definitely more in-depth and more technical on Mastodon. Hockey Twitter moved over to BlueSky, which made me extremely happy. Because once video was enabled, huge for clips. But for Torontonians, Mastodon. There's a huge Toronto community on Mastodon that was very easy to find.
I'm still finding most of my music stuff on X, though. Like, if I want to find out what's up with a band or somebody, I generally look on X. I'm seeing some music stuff here and there on the other platforms, but that still seems to be concentrated there. I also don't spend as much time on any of them as I used to on Twitter.
It's weird. Ever since 2021, my activity about posting and all that dropped off significantly. I still follow a lot of people, but my this is, I'm buying new boxer shorts, at a 2-for-1 sale or something. I don't know, anything. Is what? It's a thing I do.
You made a joke. We were laughing at your joke. Don't call us out for assisting.
All right.
Unless that wasn't a joke, but I thought it was, so it seemed like it was worth it.
We'll call it a joke. But it just I partly maybe because I have more on my plate within the past 4 or 5 years, but at the same time I believe I'm out of that phase in my life where I had to tell everyone everything. Like what I'm eating. Oh, I'm over here on a Saturday afternoon. Who else is here? Like, I don't, like if it were me looking at me, I wouldn't care.
These boxer shorts are way more expensive now that they're not 2-for-1 anymore.
And so you're saying that the new options for notifications as to whether people like your reposts or stuff, you probably not going to play with them? You don't think it's going to change your engagement with it more like old Twitter?
I think it really is the people that I would engage with, and at least a good 20% just sort of fell off the entire social media bandwagon. Like they're not there anymore. Their old accounts are there, but they're not posting, or they haven't posted in 2 or 3 years. So, it's if they're not doing it, I'm not doing it. My cohort, not like it's hard to describe. I spend more time talking to those people over SMS, RCS than I do over social media.
All right, let's talk about another form of silence. People discussing the Nintendo Switch 2. A lot of talk before launch. A lot of talk about where can I find one at launch. But now that it's been launched, even though it's like still kind of hard to get, people have gone a little quiet about it. Jen, what's up with that?
Yeah, well, for the quickest of recaps, the Nintendo Switch 2 launched on June 5th, which for some reason feels like a year ago, neither here nor there. There were midnight launches across the nation and in various countries, and I went and I enjoyed it. A lot of other people did too, because they sold approximately 3.5 million units in 4 days. So it was a clear winner among the Nintendo console launches, and possibly all of them, because there was a leak from Nintendo's corporate site suggesting the Switch 2 broke over 5 million units, rumored to be 5.4 million units, across all of June. That's a lot of units. That's incredible. It's astounding. So now what? What's next? Silence. It's like everyone from Nintendo went on vacation for the summer, and don't we all want to be on vacation?
What are they, Alderaan?
So basically, there's been the solid push for the Donkey Kong Bonanza game. But otherwise, like the other thing that got a lot of press was the Nintendo Welcome Tour. But in their latest newsletter, they show Mario Kart World, they show Bonanza, and then they show 2 games that only talk about like the features, like the new Joy-Cons can be used as mice. So they're promoting that. They're promoting the game they've already sold, the Mario Party, saying like, hey, there's 2 new things that you can do only on Switch 2. End of newsletter. Like the good news is that this has like pushed the fact that Nintendo Welcome Tour was sold for $14.99 in Canada and $9.99 in the US and should have been free. It really, really should have been free.
Welcome Tour is supposed to be free.
Yeah,
generally.
It's an explainer on how to use the system, right?
Right.
Yeah, like the art style. I love the art style. I am not
manual
not dissing.
sold separately.
Exactly. Like it was great. It was cute. It was surprisingly technical when it goes into how the controller works. It is not worth $9.2. Again, I'm still mad at the Canadian price. $14.99. I can get indie games for that price.
Do they think like you'll be so clueless as to operate that you'll be forced to or compelled to purchase it so you understand how to operate
that's another one of the pros and cons. If you've had a Switch, held a Switch, ever seen a video about the Switch, you know how to use the Switch too. It's the exact same interface. Like even between the PS3 and PS4, they did change the UI a little. And here, the main difference, if you can even call it that, is that it'll have little notifications as to whether you can share this as a game key or not.
Yeah, that's not something I needed to spend $15 to learn how to adapt to. I don't think.
Yeah.
Is it that's causing the silence? The fact that the Switch 2 really isn't that much different, and so there's nothing to talk about. There's not, and there's not, as is typical, a whole lot of new games yet because we're so close to launch.
Yeah, like part of me wonders whether this is in fact very deliberately intentional, because for those of us who had the Switch and upgraded to the Switch 2, we already have 1.5 million games to play. The fact that they fixed Pokemon on the Switch 2 has me replaying Pokemon because now I can play it without crashing. I can actually see Pokemon on the world that do not fall through the world. I get to play the improved Zelda games with the tracker on the app, which is actually a good app. It keeps all the notes of stuff, so I no longer have to literally have a notebook beside me. If you pay for Nintendo Switch Online, they are just throwing brand new titles that people actually wanted at you month after month after month, which is why I'm still subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online versus, say, the PlayStation Online, which just kept increasing in price to the point where I couldn't justify it anymore.
None of those things are going to spark a huge subreddit thread, though, right? Like nobody's going to be like, oh, I'm playing a game that worked, or I'm happy about a service. Like that doesn't cause a lot of people to jump in and talk.
no one buys a new console to say like, hey, I'm playing Fortnite at a better frame rate, even though
Yeah,
you also
yeah.
are, which is nice. But that is not making game developers that aren't Epic money. And, companies kind of want money and excitement.
I mean, could it be that they're just waiting for the fall to kind of unleash the marketing, deluge? Because then you're kind of building momentum up to the holiday buying season.
I wonder if it's not only that, because I think you're right, Roger. I think it's that. And I think part of the reason is Nintendo may have worried about the reaction to the Switch 2 for multiple reasons. Maybe they were worried about something technical failing and it didn't end up failing, and that's good. Maybe they were worried about people having a backlash if they, worked really hard to get one because it was so hard to get. And then we're like, this isn't that much different. And they didn't want to release a big new title in the midst of that. That didn't happen. And so instead of dealing with the backlash, we've got nothing because they cleared out the schedule to deal with it. What do y'all think of that?
Well, we call it nothing, but technically they did have a huge smash launch title, even for people who did not buy the bundle, because we have Mario Kart World, a huge evolution in the series. And like the theory that I do actually lend credibility to is they did not want to affect possible sales of Mario Kart World at all. They wanted this to be the game. They wanted everybody to own this. I do hope they update it more in the future, even if I do not like some of the things that they're doing now. So there's the courses. Everybody loves courses. Courses are great. You get 3 laps. Good job. These straight line courses are very frustrating and very annoying to play one after the other when you're playing online. Because there used to be a way that you can kind of game the system so that you could only get the 3 lap things online. Nintendo's like, and patched it out.
Maybe that's it. I mean, I still hold to the idea that, yes, they knew that Mario Kart would be their big launch title, but they left a space after that. Maybe they thought there'd be more discussion of Mario Kart than there is. Maybe this is an example of people going, yeah, Mario Kart, cool. What else you got? Versus, and they thought there would be that might have more momentum.
I mean, they're not hurting for sales, so maybe they thought, maybe we don't have to spend as much as we thought, and maybe just keep our powder dry.
That is a very Nintendo way of going about this. I think we forget that they often have a big launch title, like Zelda last time, and then nothing for a while. There's always the complaint after a Nintendo console that there are no games to play until suddenly all the games show up and then everybody forgets about it.
Yeah, because Zelda's a 100-hour game. Let's just call it what it is. Yes, you can pass it faster, but it's a 100-hour game. You're going to get distracted.
You're going to play that for a while.
Mario Kart World, I beat all of the cups in, about 36, 46 minutes. And now I am enjoying going around, finding the question box, hitting the P-switches, unlocking all the costumes. But you need to be a completionist to care about all of that. You have to also hope that all of your friends have the game and pay for online so that you can keep doing this. Right now, the video chat feature is free temporarily. So they want to get as many people using that in the game as possible to convince people to pay for it in the future. We'll see how that goes. Summer is usually prime Nintendo time, and you'd think they would have more. Now, I do think Donkey Kong is going to do gangbusters. I'm not a Donkey Kong fan outside of the original Donkey Kong Country. I'm stoked for this. I don't care about lore. I don't care how Pauline fits in. It's fine. I am in. I'm going to buy it, and I think a lot of people are going to buy it because it is the next big Nintendo game.
I mean, Nintendo is in such a unique position where they don't need to do the traditional sort of marketing that you would see from Sony or Xbox or even a game developer, because I mean the stuff sells on its own, right? It's the same way Toyota and Honda really didn't do as heavy a marketing during the late 90s, early 2000s, in the same way that GM or Ford or Mazda did, because they would always have all these sales. It's because the cars sold themselves. All they needed to do was make sure they were available in the quantities that people wanted, and then you could buy them, wherever, and the rest would fall into place. It's not a bad place to be. I mean, if you're the kind of person,
it's not easy to get a Switch 2 right now.
Yeah.
There's still
it's easier.
They can't. It's easier, but they're still selling more than they can make.
Yeah, and I mean, I can think of worse, positions to be if you were an electronics company to have absolutely no demand and you were pumping out product that was gathering dust. But it's weird because I've often said this, that if you look at Nintendo and you frame their viewpoint in the way that they are a toy company versus Sony, which is an electronics company, and Xbox, which is a subsidiary of a software services, cloud services company, it kind of sort of cements how they look at their worldview. They have a product. People obviously want to buy it. Yes, there are things that people really want right now. That's great. Obviously, it shows there's demand. We're going to have that. We're going to fill that demand this fall. Just you wait.
I've just did a search on Google Shopping, and I can buy a Nintendo Switch 2 on Walmart for $679. In other words, it's a resale. It's like not list price. And the only other ones I can find are eBay and StockX.
Oh, that is fascinating. I was in Staples the other day, and they had 2 planes and 1 bundle available, which I didn't even know
That's
Staples sold consoles. So.
Apparently, first of all, go to an office supply store like Staples because fewer people are going there. And Best Buy too, I've heard, if you go into the store, you're more likely to find one.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're putting them on the shelf, but they're not listing them online because they know if they list them online, they'll be gone in a second.
Yeah, and they want the foot traffic in the store. So
and they'll still sell it.
Yeah.
They're not just sitting on the shelves. Like people are still walking in and finding them and buying.
They'll sell themselves. You might as well leverage that and have people walk in and maybe pick up a new TV on the way out.
Yeah. Well, look at us giving actual pro tips.
Semi-pro tips. If you've got a pro tip for us, though, please let us know in our Discord. You can join the Daily Tech News Show Discord right now. All you need to do is be a patron or become one at patreon.com/DTNS. Now, when we talk EVs, we're talking about moving away from fossil fuels, right? Well, not just. It also frees up the car design to incorporate new features that you can't do when you have a big old internal combustion engine in there. Roger, help us understand what's going on. You got a good example of this.
Yeah. So Rivian, the EV pickup SUV maker, announced a new feature for their quad motor vehicles called the kick turn. Now, it's a feature that when you have the 4 motors, there's 1 motor for each wheel. It allows the Rivian to turn in place, much like a tank. And 6 years ago, they introduced this feature, and it was more of a marketing stunt than anything else. They called it the tank turn. And like a tank, one set of wheels on, say, the left side and one side of the set of wheels on the right side, they would turn in the opposite direction. So you would effectively turn the vehicle in place. Now, at the time, people were wondering, are you going to make this available as a standard consumer product? Decided against it for safety issues, as well as ecological concerns. They didn't want people to be doing donuts out in the great wilderness.
I mean, it's the tightest possible donut you can do, right?
Yes.
So it's pretty tempting,
but like,
I'm not going to lie.
You don't want to scare the deer or the fish. Maybe not the fish. The birds away.
Yeah, don't do the donuts in the river either. That's good.
But they did a variant called the kick turn, and the kick turn is very interesting. So the idea is that you still have that same functionality where you could effectively spin in place, but instead of spinning in place, you can use it to make incredibly tight turns. So if you're going off-road and say you're on a sheer face of a cliff or something, instead of trying to do a 28-point turn to get around a corner and not fall off that sheer face of the cliff, you can just rotate 90 degrees where you need to be and then continue on in the direction you want to go. And what this reminded me of is how inherently flexible EVs can be. Because the motor placement, the transmission placement, all that is totally different from your traditional internal combustion engine car, where you have an engine, as you were saying, Tom, up front, but then you connect it to a transmission, which is connected to a drive shaft, either the front wheels, the rear wheels, or all the wheels. But it's very complicated if you want to do like all-wheel drive, like on a Subaru. In fact, if you actually ever look on the underside of many of these cars, it's not just complicated, it's expensive maintenance because you got 5 additional elements that you have to constantly keep greased, oiled, and looked after. With this, it's a little more simplified. And what's interesting is that because you can do these things independently with the quad motors, at least with the Rivian, they're offering a feature called the RAD Tuner, RAD, R-A-D, short for Rivian Adventure Department. allows you to change the vehicle's driving dynamics by adjusting the balance, stability, and ride height through the touchscreen, which is something, I mean, you would not have been able to do, at least cheaply, on a traditional car. And even simple things like stability control. Stability control is the computer assist where it allows you to drive in the rain and not drive off the road. And it does that by controlling wheel slip by applying a little brake on the affected wheel. Now, if you had each wheel with its own motor, you wouldn't really need to do that because you could just adjust the speed of the motor on each affected wheel, making it infinitely more flexible. And it boggles
So
my
wait,
mind.
is that what they're doing with EVs? Each wheel has its own motor?
No. This is a new thing. Traditionally, what they've done is they followed the internal combustion engine design, where you just have the motor placed between the two wheels. A single motor placed between the two wheels. You have a differential built in and stuff. But for the longest time, the idea was to have a motor on each wheel. And they've done that, but the problem is you have what you call the weight of the wheel. You don't want it too heavy, because if it's too heavy with the motor in it as you drive, they call it unsprung weight, and it starts bobbing the car.
Okay, so back up a little bit though. What is the difference then that allows Rivian to do this? Right? Like, why are they? Because I get that the internal combustion engine is got more complications in creating the power. But in my mind, I'm like, once the power comes out of either the internal combustion engine or the EV or the electric engine, it's the same system from then on. But what you're telling me is it's not.
It's not. And what I'm glossing over is it just frees the design elements of it. You're not.
But how?
Not, well, so traditionally, you can now take the motor and you can put it directly where you want it, right? So because a motor in an EV is a physically much smaller device than an internal combustion engine, you can put the wheel directly on the axle and you can slide it over closer to the wheel. So in this case,
the motor directly on the axle.
Yeah.
So you could have a motor on each axle. Okay, so when I said a motor with each wheel, I was essentially imagining that.
Yeah.
And what you took it as is like a motor in the wheel, which is too much weight. I get that now. But you can have the motor placement be close to the wheels to power them directly. That makes sense.
And you don't mechanically need to consider, well, how am I going to drive this wheel with the one engine located here? I'm going to need a drive shaft here, and then I'm going to need a drive shaft that goes 90 degrees. I'm going to have to either use a U-joint or a constant velocity axle. Or, there's all these mechanical encumbrances. You don't know. It's not only complicated
because you can't move an internal combustion engine around inside the chassis much.
Exactly.
Like it kind of has to be. It could be in the trunk, but it's usually in the hood. And then once it's there, right?
It's there, and traditionally, it's the heaviest part of the car in a traditional car. In an EV, the heaviest part of the car is the battery, right? So the batteries you can shape them how you want, so you get the maximum weight distribution on your chassis. It's just, for me, it underscores how flexible moving to an EV platform is for these designers, because now you no longer have I'm going to put this giant drive shaft down the center line of the car, and now I have to have a hump. And people's feet are going to get, wedged in. It's going to be uncomfortable. It makes things simpler.
It's like phone design, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have the battery be whatever shape you want it to be, right? And that allows you to be flexible in how you design the phone. And that's how you get really thin phones, is having really thin batteries. That's why thin phones tend to be bigger, so you can have a bigger battery. But you can do the same thing with an EV. You got more space to move.
And when people talk about EVs, they talk about the reduction in fossil fuel use, the ability to have these cars that are a little not simpler to make, but a little more customizable, because you have effectively a flat skateboard and then you build the chassis around that. But also, it's just, it's developmentally, you can engineer whole new designs, which is great, right? You don't need to set the person all the way back in the middle of the car because there's an engine in the way. You can even closer to the front, maximize the amount of space, like a minivan. You know, like
Right.
there's all these things. You know, it's
Although
a
then safety considerations
Yeah.
become your only thing, which
Oh, yeah.
they're always going to be. But yeah, no, that's cool.
When you're talking about traditionally, I'm going to come at this as somebody who I had a great driving instructor. She was getting rid of her car at the end of my lesson specifically. So she was like, we're going to do half on road, half on gravel. We're going to go to a skid pad. We're going to do all of these things that are completely, I got to do e-brake turns and all of that.
Wait a minute. This was your like high school driving
Yeah, I
instructor?
had, her name was
Wow.
Shelby.
That's
She
so
was a
fun.
drag racer. on
Wait,
weekends.
their name was Shelby?
Their name was Shelby. She
Really?
was awesome.
Oh, man.
But so I have learned a lot of in and outs for a standard current 12-year-old sedan at this point. But with all of these new really cool features that are possible, it's like what I heard my grandparents have a hard time adjusting to ABS brakes. They were used to having to handle the pumping on their own and had to relearn careful braking with ABS. I think I might have to relearn a bunch of stuff with all of these cool tools available, the same way kids today would have more of an issue driving my car because I do not have special cameras anywhere. I do not have a rear view camera. I have safety features, but nothing.
Do you have power
meets that-
steering?
I do, thankfully.
Okay,
My,
all right.
my first car did have windows you had to roll down. 'Cause I
crank
bought it
windows
for
are
my
great.
godfather. And yeah, like people in my class were like, what do you mean you have to roll down the windows by hand? I had no power locks. I had to lock the doors individually. It was
Oh
great.
no, those I love those. I don't know why, because you have
Yeah,
to
the
reach
little
over to
thin thing.
let someone else in. You
Yeah,
can't
it was
just do
a
it from the side.
Mercury. I had not been familiar with the brand until my godfather sold me the car.
I mean, there's so many things I learned from driving that I don't use it. Like the 9 and what's it? The 9 and 2 for
10 and 2 or
10 and
9
2.
and- yeah.
Now it's slightly off lower to the side because you have to make room for the airbag when it explodes open. You
And
know, in
everyone's
that
got a
action.
huge heads-up display these days too.
I don't. I have my car's from 2006. So
My Honda has a rear view camera in it, but our
Ooh.
Audi does not. That's how old our cars are. And neither one of them have CarPlay or Android Auto.
But
we tend to use cars until they die.
I mean, I am curious to know if my kids, if they do drive and not they're just getting into a self-driving car, what it's all going to look like. I mean, cars in the 50s look dramatically different than they do today, just shape-wise.
Yeah, sure.
Because there are all
Boats.
these considerations that we have to do. And in the 50s, they had to accommodate a very large engine, but also a
Yep.
lot of the technology that didn't exist then to make
Interestingly, the people were smaller, but the engine was bigger, so the cars were bigger back then.
That's true. We need to go on a poorer diet so we can all be shrunken.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, almost all the details of Samsung's Unpacked announcement for tomorrow were leaked. Kind of spoiled the party. But it made me wonder, why does this always happen? Every announcement has leaks. Now, some announcements have more leaks than others, but they always have them. Why do people like that so much? So I thought we'd just go around the horn and talk about how we feel about these kind of leaks ahead of time. We could talk even a little bit about why we cover the ones we do and when we don't on DTNS, but also like, do you enjoy them? Like Jen, are you the kind of person who sees a leak for like the Switch 2 before it came out or something and go, ooh, yeah, I want to find out all the details? Or are you waiting until launch day?
Definitely, like with my journalist hat on, I was like, okay, cool. I know the specs. I have an idea of where this is going. I can formulate in my mind how consumers are going to react to this. And then as a fan, to use like movie leaks as a thing, it's like, nope, I mute a whole bunch of words. If I watch an F1 race later in the day, I mute the term. I do
Those
not
are
check socials.
spoilers
Yes.
versus leaks. I'm thinking more about the product specs, but it's an interesting take on that.
Yeah, in my brain, it seems to occupy the exact same thing. Like right now, if
Interesting.
there was a Switch 2 leak about another first-party title coming, like, yeah, I'd be all over that. It's breaking my own rules.
I hadn't even thought of it till you brought up the movie and sports analogy, but like people hate spoilers. Like, do not tell me a spoiler, but they
want to
love
enjoy
rumors.
the production. Yes.
Yeah.
There is an element of forbidden knowledge, I believe,
Yeah.
that people associate whether
Right, because the spoiler is an actual like I know what happens versus the rumor, which is like I don't know. I think I got the inside scoop. but maybe it's not true.
That there's like insight that's almost like exclusive, right? Like only a select few understand that.
Even though it's posted on a blog where everyone can read it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
you know,
but totally. It feels that way still.
They're swapping out the Hemsworth brothers, one for the other, so the brother plays Thor now or something. You know, like, ooh, I know something you don't. But, you know, that's how gossip, you know, a lot of entertainment gossip.
It's the same thing that powers gossip. Yeah, that's a really good point.
People like that. I've always noticed that people talk more about rumors than the actual product when it ships, like much like the Switch 2 discussion we had. If you went back like maybe 6 months or 8 months and people are talking about, oh, what's going to be in the Switch 2? I heard they're going to have this. You know, my cousin's brothers, you know, gatekeeper or whatever, he has this exclusive information because he heard it that they're going to incorporate, you know, SD cards but with a selective encryption technology, and it's going to do all this stuff. Like you feel like you're a part of a special group, but also because, you know, you eventually will know. You're just trying to, you know, I think there's a certain amount of thrill in the same way that she, like, you know, an unplayed lotto ticket is always a winner until you hear the numbers. Like you play the lotto, but
yeah,
it could
you got
be a
the
winner.
fantasy. Yeah,
yeah, like, oh, what am I going to do with $120 million? I'd buy my own island. I would buy my own island.
There's also the legal aspect of leaks. Way back in the day when Mac was rumored, quote unquote, to be able to run on x86, I did a segment on it on television where you could see me, and right at a frame, you had the lawyer being incredibly careful and was going to step in and stop the segment if I said anything that sounded like I was endorsing how to try this and how to use this.
Oh, you mean like running Mac or OS 10
it
at the
was
time?
a rumor, except that it was proven because a hacker had figured it out, and I had figured out how they figured out, and I was showing it on television. And yeah, the lawyers were extremely interested in the precise wording that I was going to be using
I had
to
the
protect
same experience
themselves.
at CNET. It's so funny. Yeah. Same story, yeah.
Yeah, and then these days, if you broadcast a leaked game, Nintendo is coming after you.
I mean, honestly, if you broadcast any game, whether it's leaked or not, Nintendo's coming after you.
True,
But
Nintendo's a little picky.
There's a little more verve when it's not actually released. You're right. I think there's also I think, Roger, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of like, I want to be in the know to it. But then there's also the like, I just want to know. I don't want to wait for the information. And I run into a lot where people are like, so that already happened. I'm like, no, they haven't announced it yet. That was just, you know, Mark Gurman on Bloomberg, you know, saying like, so Apple canceled that. I'm like, well, the report was that they may have canceled it, but they haven't said anything about it. And that often doesn't end up having any consequence because you're not involved in the product. So if you're wrong, if you're believing something wrong, it doesn't matter. But occasionally it will come up where a company will do something and people will get mad because they're like, well, you said you weren't going to do that. And you have to remind people like, no, they never said anything. There was a rumor that they were going to do that, but that is not in fact what the company said.
I mean, how many of these leaks are done by the companies themselves? As sort
Majority.
Of yeah, like
I would venture to say more than 70%.
And I'm wondering, is it a stalking horse or is it a marketing tactic to build interest? To both.
The answer to that is yes. It is
speak for
both
some
of those
smaller game companies where a lot of leaks happen from third party or second party translators. Boy, a lot of leaks come out of translation companies.
Yeah,
and
you can kind of tell when it was on purpose and when it came like that, like from some.
It cannibalizes their news cycle. Like the game companies often end up gutted because they get all this press of like, oh, this is coming. And then when it's out, they're like, oh yeah, we already know. And then they don't get the coverage they'd been counting on to sell the game. And for them, it is an actual monetary cost to this leak.
There's a character to those kind of rumors too, where you're like, oh, that's kind of a flimsy, like it was a translator or it was a case maker or something and those don't always end up being true. Right. And then there's the ones where you're like, Mark Gurman says, Ming-Chi Kuo says, or other reporters besides them. But if it's Gurman or Kuo, you know it came from
You feel pretty good
within.
about it.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, there is someone making the decision to leak this out. Sometimes they do it to see what the response is. Sometimes they do it to see what their competitors will respond to. Sometimes companies will release something as a leak because they want investors to get excited and come to them, and they'll get business deals based on that. We're like, hey, I heard you're doing the thing, and my company could help. So there's more than just marketing. I think as consumers, we are always the hero of our own story, and we're like, it's for us, it's marketing. And sometimes it is, but not all the time.
It kind of reminds me a while back that Ford let leak a statistic, or not statistic, basically the load capacity of their new upcoming Ford F-150, and they allowed it to be slightly less than what it actually was. In other words, like 2,000 pounds less towing capacity, and they let that out. So their competitors would seem like, oh, it only has like a standard 6,000 pound towing capacity. We can easily match that, and so they would offer their vehicles and pronounce like it can tow up to 6,000, and then Ford was like, oh no, it tows out to 8,000, right? So the whole idea was to kind of mislead competitors,
exceed expectations. Apple does that occasionally too, I've noticed.
So I mean, it's so weird, but people eat it up because people are still doing it, or other people are still doing it.
Well, send us your rumors, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com, and then we might read them in the mailbag.
All right, we got a post from Joe regarding a discussion of the new efficient online passport renewal in the system in the U.S. He writes, I did renew my passport online within a couple of weeks of it being publicly available. It was a small hassle setting up my credentials via logon.gov, but the smoothness of the rest of the process made up for it. I think we had to report and resubmit my photo twice and had to try 4 or 5 times for the photo of my wife. But instead of going somewhere and mailing a photo to hopefully not have it rejected, it was immediately rejected by the tool, and we could redo it before completing the application, and more importantly, paying the fee. It was 2 to 3 weeks before hers arrived, and 4 to 5 for mine.
I wonder why hers came so much faster. Maybe the picture was better.
I've had that happen once where my picture was rejected. It's like, got to retake it. Like, it wasn't bright enough. Like, it wasn't bright.
No, and that's what we were talking about yesterday. Yeah. Is like, that is the annoying part of doing it by mail, is if they reject it, then you have to wait for them to tell you by mail and then take a new picture and mail it in. So I love that John here is saying like, Joe is saying, you just reshoot it immediately. You don't have to wait around. It'll tell you right then. So that definitely saves you time.
It's so smart. I recently redid my passport, and I very carefully planned it. Like, I wanted to go in because I was like, I'm not mailing this. I do not want to deal with the back and forth. So I went to Service Canada that was right next to a passport place, and they rejected my first image. So I walked out the door, walked out the thing. Yeah. They said, hey, they really hate this bright spot. Close your freaking windows. And then I walked back and got it done.
Yeah. The online system is pretty good. Thanks, Joe. And there were some other people that shared their experiences with using the system. So appreciate everybody sending it along. Remember, you can send in your comments, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. And of course, if you're a patron like Joe, you can comment on anything we post on patreon.com/DTNS. Jenn Cutter, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. It's always great to have you. Of course, if you don't know, on Daily Tech News Show, the briefing edition, the audio only edition, Jen's with me every Wednesday and occasionally on other days. What else you got going on?
I can't talk about it yet because it's not public, but you will find out first if you follow me on social media. I am jencutter.bsky.social, and I am Jenn Cutter on the main Mastodon server. So you can find me there, where you will get unique posts on each platform.
You should drop a rumor about what you're doing ahead of time.
Very, very subtle. Yeah.
Build up that anticipation.
Test it out. See if I should pivot.
Yeah. All right. During the show, we have been collecting your titles, as I mentioned at the beginning. Let's check in and see what they look like. Philly Codehound on the top of the table with not enough mass in your Mastodon.
Still love it.
I really like Batfinks. Any switch way you can.
A Journey reference.
Any which way but loose is always a good reference there too. EVs run circles around gas cars, literally.
I love that one.
Circle.
Love that one.
Yeah. Pectin is my jam from Stealth Dave. TikTok Canada politely told to leave. That's so funny. Sort of polite, I guess. Anyway.
Polite enough.
Rivian is a dancer.
Oh, it's that.
Was it Rhythm?
Yeah, Rhythm is
the
Rhythm is a dancer.
bopping, I want to say 90s dance hit.
Roger is buying boxer shorts. What's your vibe? JPEG.
Yes.
Leaks spring many rumors. That almost feels like a aphorism that should be on a
Feels like it should be on a fortune cookie.
fortune cookie. Yeah, it could be that. Our title that we're picking today, however, is from Batfink 2001. EVs run circles around gas cars. Yay, Batfink!
Nice. See, now I want to drive one.
I know. I want to try that
I was like,
too.
I want to know what that feels like.
As someone who may or may not have done donuts in my Maverick in the First Christian Church parking lot growing up, I'm curious what the new cars can do. Big thanks to Karna Asada 808 who just followed us. Welcome. Glad to have you along on our Twitch channel. PC Milesy gave us some bits. So did Zoe Brings Bacon. Stidhat resubscribed with Prime for the 47th month. Well done, Stidhat. Charlie and Columbus also back with Prime. They've been subscribed for 68 months. And thanks to everybody watching us on YouTube, watching us on LinkedIn. Laminar Rainbow gave us a super sticker in the off hours the other day. Thank you for that, Laminar. And thanks everybody who supports us in all the ways, including patreon.com/DTNS. We got a raise from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, for the raise on Patreon. Very much appreciate that.
And we'd like to, if data sets shape the world we live in, and there's no better way to understand how than by listening to Behind the Data. Love the show. Hosted by data scientist Andrea Jones-Roy, the show examines what data sets say about what's happening in our world, politics, health, and just what we do every day and why. Check it out at BehindTheDataShow.com.
It is so good. Definitely check that out. Do not wait. BehindTheDataShow.com. You can watch us live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. Find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. He'll be telling us why gaming can't pull in the ad dollars anymore. Oh no, is gaming doomed? Scott will tell us. Tune in tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.